Hey guys, it's Stephanie, and today I wanted to do a book review over a book I just read. I just finished reading Octavia Butler's Fledgling. This is a book I had been wanting to read for a long time. I knew Octavia Butler wrote a lot of sci-fi, and I believe this was her only foray into horror, and I actually believe this was her last book, and this is a vampire story, so I was all about that. So there were so many things about this book that I want to talk about. There were definitely things I liked and definitely things I didn't like. Let's start with the things I liked. I loved her subversion of vampire tropes. I feel like vampires in literature represent like set things. They usually represent sexuality and usually a repression of sexuality or exploitation. Hence, the blood sucking and sucking the life force out of someone, and that resulting in either turning them into another blood-sucking creature that has to, live off of exploitation, or killing that person and literally sucking the life out of them. I think when people think of vampires and Dracula, they are usually white men. So I loved her decision to make Shori, the main character, a very young black girl. She is actually a 53-year-old vampire, but to humans, she looks like a 10-year-old girl, and that is because of the slow aging process of the kind of vampire that she is. In books or shows or movies that already deal with a set mythology and horror, like vampires or werewolves, you know that they're gonna have to set the ground rules. Like, these vampires have to be invited in, and they're not scared of garlic, and they can see their reflection. So I did enjoy that aspect of it, especially learning about the relationship that they have with the humans that they feed off of, which she completely subverted in this book by making it a bit of a symbiotic relationship where both parties are benefiting so much that the vampires call the humans that they have, their little pets that they have, symbiotes. There's mutual benefits on both sides. The vampires are getting nourishment to live, and the humans are getting pleasure. And there is nutrients in vampire saliva that are strengthening their immune system and lengthening their lifespan that just make them healthy overall, which was very interesting. It also dealt with the complicated relationships because the vampires in this book will have 5 to 7 symbiotes that they carry around and live with and possibly have sexual relationships with, which we will get to later, do not worry. So because of that, there was just so much to talk about with this book. Also, that the main character was black, and that definitely came into play. There was a lot of talk of racism even within this vampire species, but I would love to get into that more, but all of that is a huge spoiler, and I am not here to spoil any big plot points around the book. So now to get to what I wasn't a huge fan of. I was not a huge fan of the writing style. It was pretty stilted, and it got a little boring. Also, I understand that also when you're dealing with a set mythology and you're introducing all the rules, usually there's some kind of expository vehicle that you're using, whether it's the narrator that is a vampire or a werewolf talking to the reader saying like, listen, here's the rules, or you have a human that has run into vampires and they're giving her a tour and they are explaining to her, a la Bella in Twilight. In this book, Shori wakes up with amnesia and she doesn't remember anything about who she is. So when she finally is around her own kind, it's just her asking a bunch of questions and people answering them, which I felt got a little tiresome at times. I was very tired of that kind of exposition throughout the story. And the dialogue I just felt was really wooden and stilted. The book gave me a lot to think about, but I was just not a huge fan of the writing. That is not in any way going to deter me from ever picking up an Octavia Butler book. I have heard this is one of her weaker ones, but since it's horror, I definitely wanted to start with this. So, I'll be picking up more by her. So, the sexuality in this book, there's a lot I wanted to talk about. First of all, the Aina, the species of vampires, they have, I said, several symbiotes. They do not mate with the humans. They use the humans to feed off of them, but they do and can have sex with them. And they're very polyamorous and pansexual, which is fine. But the fact that Shori is a 10-year-old girl and her first symbiote is a 25-year-old man, and there was just a lot of sex scenes with them, was very unsettling and just very upsetting. I'm just gonna be real, guys. It was gross. This girl, you know, going to the lengths of saying that her body is prepubescent and she is a little girl, and that this grown man is having sex with her, and it's described in a little too much detail for my taste, was not something I was a fan of. So although this book gave me so much to think about, and I loved that there was a lot of issues tackled and a lot of subversion of tropes, was not a favorite of mine, and I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. If you do want to pick up Octavia Butler like I did, I probably wouldn't start here. I would definitely start with her better known books, maybe Kindred or Parable of the Sower, but I wasn't all that impressed with this one. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!